Krzysztof Warwick's various forms of friction, as suggested by the title, deals with friction between different material. And I think you can read into this in many different ways. As a soloist, playing this incredibly demanding but rewarding piece, I'm expected to play in registers in the cello that are so high that I never imagined that one would write for the cello like that, and I'm actually not unused to playing very high, but Krzysztof takes it to the furthest extreme you can. I'm literally 1 millimeter from where the string stops. And there are many ways you can read into this idea of friction, but between soloist and material there's definitely a friction. Can you deliver the score? Sometimes it's so demanding in terms of rapid passages with quarter tones, and how do you go about this? Because maybe in your practice room you can do it, but can you do it when you know, the war of performing with the orchestra and conductor is raging? So you have to deal with that, and there's an inherent tension in performing the piece constantly, because Krzysztof really challenges the musicians, but it also creates something very special, I think. So another level that one can experience friction is of course between soloist and orchestra. You have some fiendishly difficult passages, very fast, very complicated on the cello because of quarter tones, but ridiculously fast. And there the cellist is struggling with his or her own little problem, while also having to struggle with the massive sort of instrument that the orchestra is, trying to survive and not get sort of swallowed up by their sound. And at first, when I played it the first time, I thought maybe, okay, so can they be more quiet? But then you realize, no, they should not be more quiet. This place has to be that sort of this constant tension between soloist material, probably also for the orchestral musicians there's this tension, but also the friction between my volume and the orchestra's volume, and can I actually separate myself from their sound and be heard? And should I be heard? That's the whole interpretation in certain passages is about that, I think. So in 2009 I was invited to play a concerto at the Warsaw Autumn Festival. It was my friend, Danish composer Per Nørgaard, who had written his second concerto for me. And it was Orkiestra Muzyki Nowej that was to premiere this piece. And in Warsaw, while at the festival, I met Krzysztof Warwick, and by a coincidence we actually had to go to another part of Poland, Katowice, by train, and we decided to travel together because we had to leave the same day anyway. And then we started talking, and we talked about could me and Per Nørgaard maybe go to Louisville, where Krzysztof is professor of composition. And this eventually happened. In fact, only the year after, in 2010, I believe we were there. And Krzysztof and I talked about a cello concerto. In fact, I played a little snippet, like one page of the concerto. I remember giving the premiere of in Louisville. And then some years later, when Krzysztof had time to finish the concerto, we had a performance with Orkiestra Muzyki Nowej in Katowice, an orchestra that I know incredibly well. It's in fact the 6th or 7th concerto I record together with them. So it's also really cool to be in the studio with them and to work this way, because there's no politeness, nervousness. We just do business. It's so easy to focus because everybody knows each other. The orchestra knows Krzysztof. Krzysztof knows the producer Beata. I know Beata very well. I know Szymon, who conducts, and so does Krzysztof. They've grown up together. So I feel I'm slowly becoming an honorary Polish person, perhaps. At least that's how I feel. And I remember Krzysztof and I, we were collaborating over Skype. We would solve some practical issues, how to make that expression, how should that be notated, and so on. So it was a long process. I remember especially one summer sitting sweating over the first pages, and then now here we are, and what is this? It's 10 years later, even 12 years later, we are at the end of recording the piece. So it's quite a special moment.